Hello. It's Monday and it's Marianne. Isn't that alliterative? Good to see everybody. Today, it's Monday again, the start of the wonderful week. It's 70 degrees in Asheville, North Carolina, where I live. Yay. Small weather report. That isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about terminology and community, or terminology within the community movement. And as I've said before, part of my lure and interest in this is because my dad was a semantics professor. And I consistently hear people talking about things around community, and I'm always curious what they mean. Yeah. I hope some of you are out there. If you're out there, say hi, send me a heart, tell me that the video's working, whatever you would like to do. I would greatly appreciate it. And I am going to continue. So, first of all, I want to let you know that there are links for you on the things that I'm talking about today. You know, these little links that you can click on later on. Please, later on. Yeah. Hello, Linda Williams. And another thing is that I didn't want you to forget about that. Is that also I'm going to give you some things that you probably could take notes on if you're one of those people that likes to do that. I'm one of them, so I always hope that you are too. So before I get started on more about what community is here, and that is and the languaging within it, I wanted to talk about a quality that I find is a really important quality in building community and this movement, and that's tenacity. Tenacity is described as meaning mental or moral strength to resist opposition, danger, or hardship. It's sort of that kind of word that people say, she has courage, she has spirit. And that's something that I saw this week that I wanted to briefly tell you about. And that was, I was at a seminar online, of course, and the person who was teaching for 4 days online, at the end of one of the days said, actually the person doing it with her said, she has had laryngitis and a sore throat all this whole time. So you wouldn't have known that at all, but he did let us in on that fact, and she was then off to urgent care. That, to me, is a form of tenacity, tenacious, courage, mettle. And I'm encouraging you to have some of that too, because living in community will take a certain amount of tenacity. Going from tenacity to my chosen definition of community, which I really like, and it came from one of my favorite books, which I talked to you about in another Facebook Live, and that was Creating Community Anywhere by Carolyn Schaefer and Kristen Adenson. And hello, Debbie. Thank you for telling me the video looks good. I was wondering when the technology guru is going to have a snafu, so it's a good day. And the community definition of community, lots of people use all different definitions, and for this always what I use is, it's participating in common practices, depending on one another, making decisions together, and identifying themselves or ourselves as something larger than the sum of just us as individuals, and probably the one that is most a sticking point for some people is really to commit, yeah, that word, commit, to themselves for the long term, to each other, and to the well-being of everybody and the group. And that's my favorite definition of community. And we're talking about definitions, terminology, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, and that is in another Facebook Live video, and that is aging in place. But you will hear aging in place quite often when people say, I want to stay in my home versus going to an institution. Well, there's lots of flavors of that, and that's exactly right. So remaining in their own home throughout your life, even if you have physical or cognitive changes. And I talked about this when I talked about Bill Thomas, and he talks about aging in place is holding on to the banister so as you don't get taken to one of those places. So again, my definition of the alternative is aging in community. And there are actually, I believe, 6 principles of aging in community. And I want you to sort of consider the difference between aging in place and aging in community using these principles. So one, include people of all ages, especially elders. So aging in place won't necessarily do that unless you have a multi-generational environment. I'm pointing these out to you. You can help me with them anytime. Jump in anytime. Aging in community upholds a lifestyle that is ecologically, economically, and socially sustainable. Would you say aging in place will be able to do that? Don't know how socially sustainable that would be. What do you think? Enhance wellness of mind, body, and spirit. I don't know about you, but me sitting in my house by myself, if I have no housemate or interaction, I don't know how good I will feel. And 4 is, has access to home and community. Well, again, provide, how much access is there? And again, 5, encourage interdependence and reliance on one another within the community and the greater society. These are principles of aging in community that are somewhat different than aging in place. And the last one is supporting opportunities at every age, for civic and social engagement, lifelong education, and creative expression. And again, I'm saying, as we age in place, is it possible in the place that you are aging, that, because we all are, that you will have that creative expression or that creative outlet? That's just a question. Is that a yes, no, maybe? What do you say? Linda, Debbie, let me know what you think. Another term that's bandied about and is intentional communities. And I've often said to people who have asked me, so where do all these community things fall into intentional communities? Well, as the words describe, intentional is intended to be a community. So as examples of that would be collective households, we've talked about, co-housing, co-living, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, monasteries, communes, retreats, kibbutz, ashrams, and housing cooperatives. Yeah. So, moving right along, I just want to give you sort of to me, I think of the intentional communities then is the overarching umbrella above these. I'm going to just spend a moment on co-housing because lots of people talk about it as shared housing. And as Linda knows, it always pokes me to say, when people say, I live with someone else, I have to do my whole routine on, do you live under many roofs? Or one roof? So co-housing is people independently owning their own, probably adjacent houses or connected houses, and they also own together common space. And the principles behind co-housing is it's a participatory process. That means there's lots of meetings. It's a neighborhood design done by those residents. There's common facilities. It's managed by the residents. Oh dear. And there's shared leadership and decision making amongst the people that live there. And an important thing is there's no shared economy. I think this comes from the commune thing. The next term that I hear a lot more of now, so I sort of investigated it, and that was co-living. Co-living. So as I looked more and more at this, it's sort of been, co-living was sort of taken over by the millennials, saying that it's the openness of the collaboration, social networking, and the shared economy. Okay. And it's often in an apartment or an urban setting, maybe a single building. And before COVID, there was a lot more co-living, as you would expect. Some businesses, some organizations have been able to really do a really good job keeping it in place. So there's hope for that. But in the definition I saw, that was sort of, well, we're leaving out families, retirees, and boomers. And then, and I put the link in here for you guys, and that is one of my favorite websites, 60andMe, which is a website and lots of great stuff. I put the link in there. Has a group for boomers, and we have sort of taken it over and borrowed it from the millennials, and looking at small, and again, it's small private space, some shared common space, and it's become far more attractive to us boomers. Small spaces, sure. Okay, something new. I think some of you were here for my conversation with you about my housemate and my kitties. And I made the offer to you that I would be willing to share the video that I took with my sister showing you Vicky's place. And I'm pretty sure both Linda and Debbie, I'm in the process, if I haven't already sent it to you, of sending it to you. Anybody else that gets this, let me know. If you just DM me or put your comment in here, and I will send it to you. It's pretty sweet. Sweet. Okay, did you get that? Debbie, Linda, thank you for being here. And one of my favorite books that I told you about a while back from Beth Baker is this one. No, it's this one. There we go. Hello, camera. With a little... Okay, excellent. We'll get it to you, Linda. With a little help from my friends, it has all these wonderful ladies in their, looks like square dance outfits. And that is, her book in the back has a glossary of alternative models right here. If you have this book, look in the back. And because it talks about all the various models that there are, that some of which I covered in my talk with the Foundation of Intentional Communities. It used to be called Fellowship. Now it's the Foundation. So I always get stumbled by that one. In her book, with a little help from our friends, she talks about the grassroots alternatives that there are. And I love her list. That is mobile home cooperatives in a small town in Oregon. There's a senior artist community in Los Angeles. And then, of course, there's the village-to-village model that also takes into account naturally occurring retirement communities, which is communities where the building has aged, the people have aged, and they all are in it together. Intentional co-housing communities, and oh my goodness, best friends moving in together. We like that one, don't we? And then there's the multi-generational families that sort of can balance that out. And the niche communities, which might have, she talks about retired postal workers. Yeah, that's just as an example. Great book. And a couple other ones, of course, one of my favorites is the Golden Girls model, which is shared housing. And to sort of veer off into another field, and that is as far as what I think of as a term that's often used by people in the community movement, and that is, I want to live in a tiny house. And this is where I get a little, yet another little crazy, and that is tiny houses when they first came about were 120 square feet. So when people say, I want a tiny house, I just have to, I get cheeky. What can I say? I say, can you live in 120 square feet? Oh, no, my tiny house is 500 to 800 square feet. And I'm thinking, I lived in that much space. Vicky's space is 400 square feet. So it's not as tiny as I think it was originally. And oftentimes, tiny houses move over into accessory dwelling units as a definition, ADUs. And these can sometimes be called a man cave, a she shed, a granny flat. I don't find any of those all that descriptive, but maybe they are. And it's something where there's privacy, but there isn't isolation. So accessory dwelling units are becoming far more popular as those of us age are saying, I don't need a big house, I don't want a big house, but I don't also want to be isolated. Well, this is another little thing that I wanted to hear from you, and that is, oftentimes when I talk about my friends, I was in a call recently, and a guy was talking about my tribe. And at one point, I think you guys knew, I was part of a tribe training in a tribe. And I remember how a lot of times people were against that word, and yet at the same time, it's sort of very inclusive. So if you were to say, my friends are coming over, my peeps are coming over, my people are coming over, my tribe is coming over to visit. Yeah. So thank you, Linda, for bringing up something that's clearly, I didn't mean to forget, but thank you. Maybe I did, I don't know. And that is being able to build your community within the neighborhood that you live in. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't have to move anywhere. You might just have to go across the street and talk to your neighbor. You might bring some cookies. And building that and having things like potlucks, parties. At the time when we can do that again, I think that that's a very good possibility. I don't know, I noticed in my neighborhood here, people with dogs always know all the neighbors. They always know all the names of the dogs, not so much the names of all the neighbors. But my neighbor knows all of the people in the neighborhood, all the way up the mountain that I live on. And that's a way to get to know and form community around you, which again has a huge, huge, huge impact when it comes to proximity. Proximity of how many people are around you, how close are they, and I think that I can't go without saying, when the snow falls, when adversity hits, when there's a pandemic, it's nice to know there's people around. Yeah. So, Debbie, I want to live on Lady Huntington Lane in Givens Estates. Oh, well, gee, that's nice that somebody already knows where they want to live. Excellent. So I want to just say a couple things about, and that leads you into next week. I also gave you a link to something I had done a few years ago, talking about this is what our topic for next week, and is, what do we call ourselves? So, is it old person? Funny old broad? Gorgeous? I know I've gotten very tired of somebody saying to me, because I'm over 65 and I need my flu shot or my vaccine, that means I'm elderly. It's all I can do to not say, you never, 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 never call me that. Both Debbie and Linda, you know that about me. And out of the Eden Alternative, easy for me to say, came a definition that I really like. An elder is someone who, by virtue of life experience, is here to teach us how to live. So think about it. Do you fall into that? Yeah, probably. Both of you probably do. All of you probably do. Or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me. But I have a funny story about that sort of counteracts that. And that is Dean Peterson, who I know Linda knows, and some of you do, from Elder Spirit in Abington, Virginia. I talked to her last week, 2 weeks ago maybe. She's doing great. I believe she's 92 now. And she said she is now at Elder Spirit, which is a senior co-housing community that was built. Took 10 years to build. I think it's been there at over 10 years. And she said that now the span of ages is from 65 to 90. And the funny thing that she said was, she said, all of us that are over 90 decided that if you're 65 to 90, you're elders. And if you're over 90, you're old. I thought that was hysterical. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you're here. Next week we're going to talk more about, what do you want to be called? I would guess all of us want to be called by our names. But as a cohort, we need something new, don't you think? Oh, yes. So I hope you enjoyed this little walk down terminology lane around community. There's a couple links for you. I also said I love 60andMe, which is for women over 60. It's got all sorts of good stuff. You could be lost there you could be enraptured for a long time. I like wise woman. There we go, Linda. See, I knew you were the right group to ask. So thanks again. I will see you next week, God willing. And I want you to remember, connection, that's what this is. And a little information leads to some real action. And maybe even some tenacity. See you next week. Thanks for being here.